Hi, thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar. We're excited to have you join us. And the webinar today is focusing on document assembly or document automation solutions for in-house legal teams. So we think this is a great topic to focus on, and we hope to address some of the questions that you may have and that you'll find this interesting. Feel free to type any questions that you have in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll take a few minutes at the end of the presentation to discuss those. You won't have the ability to have any audio to ask the questions, so you'll need to type those in if you do have any comments or questions, and we'd love to address those. And again, this is kind of a brief, high-level overview talking about some of the experiences we've had with in-house legal teams. And if you would like more information or a deeper dive, we'd be happy to do that at another time. We could schedule a one-on-one webinar discussion with you to address your needs. So we'd be happy to do that. So today's webinar, we have Julie Rotz. She's a senior consultant here with HotDocs. Julie has 18 years of experience with document automation, document assembly solutions. She's a PMP professional, and she's worked with hundreds of clients over the years with training, consulting, project management, template development, all kinds of services for clients throughout the world. And also her clients that she's worked with have come from a variety of industries, including Fortune 500 companies, banks, insurance providers, law firms, government agencies, and much more. So she has really deep experience, and we're excited to have her speak to you today. So with this, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Julie. And again, if you have questions, feel free to type those into the panel. Okay, Julie, I'll hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin, and thank you everyone for being on the call today. I look forward to presenting you the material we have prepared for you and for you taking the time to be with us. I know for you and your firm or your company, and I hope that you get some value out of this. One of the things I want to first talk to you about is some of the most common processes that I discover, and as part of our consulting team, we discover when we come in and start implementing HotDocs or any process to do with HotDocs in a company that we work with. And most of the time when it comes to documents, we find that people they have a very similar process to anything else. You have to first find the document you want to work with, and generally this is a manual process. It might be you're using Word to search for that document. Sometimes, and I know this is in our technology age, this may come as a shock. I have walked into situations where individuals don't always have the documents in electronic format, and so it's more of a physically find the document somewhere in a drawer, or it might be in file cabinets. Perhaps they need to then scan it in or do other things. It's an arduous process for them. The next thing they have to do, if it is electronic and they found the document, let's say it is, we'll go with a separation agreement. You know, in-house legal, we do that a lot if it's in an HR department. And so we find Bob Smith's separation agreement. We're going to rename it to Sally Joe is now, you know, we're going to separate from Sally Joe. She's leaving the company. And we rename that document. And now we're going to modify it. So now we need to really go through this document and replace Bob Smith with Sally Joe, and not just Bob Smith with Sally Joe. We definitely don't want to leave those pronouns in there because that would be embarrassing. Plus anything else, maybe Bob Smith was an executive, Sally Smith is not. Perhaps there are differences in salaries, certain clauses we need to remove from the document. Now, the one thing that we need to consider in this is things like what types of errors. We have errors where we could forget to include something, forget to remove something, and we are relying on individuals in this. And I know that you guys, anyone who's on the phone, you do try to do the best you can at your job, but anytime there's a manual process, there is a chance that you're going to miss something, whether it's you or someone else, and that opens your company up for liability. And the other thing we have to consider in this is you're starting, perhaps, maybe you, maybe someone else, that person is starting from a document that might not be the most up-to-date document. And so you may have multiple versions of a standard document out there. So it may not even be yours or someone else's fault that you are not including the right language. It just, maybe that didn't get emailed to you. And so by process, the document isn't correct because of what's going on in the company. So all these things, we're going to talk a little bit about how can we make this better for you? How can document automation make it better? So one of the things I want to ask is, can you answer yes to these questions? If not, then let's talk about how we can get to the point that you can. I'm just going to start showing these quickly on the screen so you can read through them. We want to talk about, can you say that at least 95 to 100% of the times my documents or the documents in my firm, in-house legal, are accurate? If you can answer yes to that question, great. If you can't, let's ask why not. Are these errors I talked about some of those issues? Are they accessible? Are your documents accessible to anyone who needs to get access to them for filling them out? If that's all of in-house legal, are they easily accessible for them? And is the distribution method in which you're making them accessible easily managed? Is that maintainable? Do you have a scalable process? If you're a growing company, can you roll this out? Let's say you have 2 or 3 people in in-house legal right now, but you're growing and you're going to be 5 or 10. Will you be able to continue this process as it stands rolling forward? And is everything you're doing in those documents, are they comprehensive? Does everyone have what they need in them to do their job correctly? So I want you to consider some of these things as we're going through this and how many of the yeses you could say. Now, how can something like document automation, i.e. HotDocs, help you? I'm going to give a quick overview, go through this slide fairly quickly. We really want to get into our, the case study I have for you and do a quick demonstration. The content author is an individual who actually does the development of the HotDocs template, the boilerplate. And they're going to go through and they're going to take your content and they're going to turn it into a standard document that everyone in in-house legal uses. You know what? This content author can be someone in your company. And I know from the list of individuals who are attending, some of you already have HotDocs and some of you are doing this in other departments. I've worked with some of you who are on this call. So you find these data points, questions on the form that need to be filled in. And then what happens is when you have this wonderful standard boilerplate template, your user, in-house legal, has the opportunity to go in and fill in the questions in a standard way. And all of the rules are built in a way that it's easy for people to go through and they know exactly what they're doing, and it's the same for everyone. And then all the questions that are answered by the individual are filled into the documents, and they get, as a company, you get I'm going to say the word again, we've heard it before, standard looking document. You don't have one person with one font, another person with another font. You don't have that problem with versioning with one person using an old document and another person using a newer document. So let's talk about our case study here. We're going to talk about a company named Ceridian. Some of you may know them. I'm going to talk about the background with them. Ceridian is basically a provider of services for human resources for companies. They have 45 sales representatives, around that, maybe more now. Within a particular month, they may create about 300 plus contracts, which is quite a few. They're in-house legal. If you think about that, that's a lot. Within these contracts, there are 500 individual data points. So when we talk about data points, we're talking about questions that you need to fill in. Now, and this is over 30 pages within a document. And if you think about this, 300 contracts a month, 500 individual data points, that's 150,000 data points a month. And that's 150,000 different errors someone could make. And in a manual process, we know errors are going to be made. when you have that many things you're trying to just do. Each one of these contracts is up to $1.25 million to the company. So that's a lot of money at stake when you think about 300 contracts. And Ceridian represents 7% of the UK's workforce. And so, you know, these are things we don't want to get wrong. When we come and we're talking about in-house legal, it's very important that you do your job. These contracts are correct. Now, some other issues. This is just the background. The issues, they had problems with versions. It was similar to what I explained before when we came in. They had multiple people who had different versions of the contracts, and they couldn't keep track of them easily. And they were using Word, which was already a good sign, except that they just didn't have a good process for knowing which one was the right one. Now, when they purchased HotDocs, and they took what we're seeing here is version 5. They took the most standard, newest version of their document, and it's their content. So they took basically what we're seeing here in Word, the Word template, and they brought it, or document, and brought it into HotDocs. And they now have standard interviews, so standard questions that are asked to their user, lots of yes, no's, does this need to happen, and then additional questions are asked. Clause language is brought in. People don't have to copy and paste that. All these data points were built in, and there's no margin for error for them now in their documents. They've gotten to a process where they can have other individuals besides lawyers actually creating these documents. And what they do with their in-house legal is their in-house legal now is really controlling and amending the templates. So their process has changed overall by bringing HotDocs into the corporation. And by doing that, their in-house legal can, which was overburdened before with the number of contracts they were creating, can actually focus on other things for the company that are important as well. Also, one of the things that was impressive to them is they used to have a 7-figure budget for litigation with these contracts, and it's down to 0. And so those are things to consider. It's not just the fact that they're saving time and they're more efficient. They're saving quite a bit of money because of what they've done. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you their document, their template. And so bear with me just a moment. I'm going to change screens here, and I'm going to go, this is the Ceridian template. We're in a program called Template Portal. It's a web-based version of our product. Now, although I'm working in the web-based version of our product, there are multiple ways to access HotDocs. If you happen to have a case management system, if you happen to have, for example, a HR system that has all the data in it, and you've never been able to pull from it before, you can bring that data from whatever database it is. It might not be a system, it just might be a homegrown database, into HotDocs, and then people are not typing. Again, it's eliminating some of that margin of error that you might have. I'm going to go ahead, you see some red text on the screen. This red text on the screen is just asking for some questions. I am going to fill those questions in before we get going. I'm just going to talk to you about what I'm going to be doing. The red text is required. This is where some of what Ceridian built in brought down that liability and brought down that 7-figure number. I have to answer this before I can move forward. And so I need to put in the responsible person. I'm going to say Bob Smith, and then who, and this is a fill in the blank, pretty easy here, but then we have these you must answer it a certain way type of questions. You know, who is this contract being created for? And if I'm not sure what I'm being asked, I have some resource or help right here. I could look at this. So again, if I'm taking this out of the legal department a little bit, which is what they did, you can train other individuals to learn how to use this document and to do it correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and say HR. Now, as much fun as it is for you to watch me fill out questions, I am going to go through and actually fill in the demos with some custom answers. I'm going to change this back to HR and do this. as you see that, this is just going to fill down the side. This is our interview pane. We're in what's called an interview, which is a series of questions that HotDocs is going to ask me. I'm just going to go through this a little bit, pointing out certain things. Based off of what I answer and how I answer it, other questions may show up. So customer's name, has it changed? For example, maybe previously his name was Robert. We would assume Robert is the same as Bob, but we'll go ahead and change that a little bit. And then I can go and move on to something else. We have the ability in HotDocs to allow you to add multiple of something. So if there were multiple details in the agreement, you can see here's some of the details, here's some more details. You have the ability to do that. The great thing about a feature like this in a program for document automation is now within the document, I can add multiple rows in a table, multiple paragraphs in my document, and I don't have to physically do any copying and pasting to do that. Additionally, throughout the document, I can handle plurality. I can say details versus detail. If you think about pronouns throughout your legal contracts, while in in-house legal we might not do this as much, but I can now say him, her, they, based off of things like this particular feature. If it's a series of numbers I'm entering, HotDocs can actually do the summation for you. So if it's a series of figures, it can calculate and do things for you now. So these are all things that reduce the liability throughout the contract and take away from that manual process that you might have to do before. There are all different kinds of fields within this contract that they have, everything from fill in the blank to the lists that you see here to different numbers and a lot of checks and balances. Now, once they're done filling in this document, they're going to get a Word file, and I'm just going to show you that Word file because I really want to allow you guys some time to answer, to have some questions. Sorry about that. I am bouncing around here. This is their finished document. It is a Word document. They could download it as a PDF only. I do have some clients I work with where their users, remember, Ceridian's in-house legal doesn't initially create the contract. They do more of the oversight. So if they didn't want to, they could say initially the individual creating the contract can't download a Word file. They can download a PDF, or it gets routed. This is another thing that's great about HotDocs is you can have a workflow, is it gets routed to legal, and then legal can download the document and preview it as a Word file and make whatever edits need to be made. And so in this case, they can look at the document, they can read through the document, make sure everything is in here is correct. You can see that any formatting that you need to have can be supported. I'm going to go back to our presentation, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of our clients. Now, one of the things that, and in my excitement here, I moved ahead a little bit. Sorry about that. One of the things I want to talk about is that as a company, we have pioneered the concept of document automation. We've been, anyone who's worked with us, and as I mentioned, I know some of you on the phone have, we've been around for over 20 years, and we've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, when Marvin says, I've been doing this for 18 years, you know that we've been here for a while. We have over 1 million users across 1,000 organizations worldwide, and this is just a sampling of the different organizations that we work with. And actually, sorry, I have skipped a couple of slides here. I was on the wrong slide, you guys. Thank you. I always provide humor during that. That was the integration slide. I got excited and jumped ahead. Those were some of the integrations that you can have and link with HotDocs. I was talking earlier in my presentation about you know, how you can have a database and that you can link with HotDocs. Well, a lot of our clients link HotDocs with companies like Salesforce, with DocuSign, with iManage, and if you have those in-house, you can absolutely do that. Now, as a company, as I was mentioning, we have been doing this for a while, and we do have a lot of companies that we work with. One of the things that I enjoy about working with these companies is that I learn a lot from what you do. Now, this presentation is talking a lot about manual processes and some things that are not great about the manual processes. And I don't want you to feel discouraged leaving this presentation saying, oh, what I'm doing is not great. There's just nowhere for me to go. I don't know what to do, because companies like the ones that you're seeing here, companies like Ceridian, have been able to make great changes to help that. And it doesn't take, it just takes someone being able to say, let's start that change. You know, let's start with HotDocs, let's start with a program, let's take some documents in-house and make it better. And you're going to see that ripple effect for one department, for one set of employees. You're going to see some of that pool over into other departments. It's not just going to help in-house legal. Like with Ceridian, it's also going to help other groups within the company. And as I was saying before, these are some of the actual companies, just a sampling of the 11,000 clients that we have. I've actually worked with most of these clients in the past, and currently work with some of the ones that you see on the screen. The thing that we want to do is we do want to allow you guys an opportunity to ask some questions. A lot of individuals get value out of that portion. I hope that you've gotten a lot of value out of being able to hear me explain Ceridian's use case and some of the reason you might want to use HotDocs in your own corporation. I'm going to turn the time back over to Marvin, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to add your questions into the chat window, because as Marvin mentioned before, it's the only way you can ask me some questions, and I look forward to hearing what you have for me.
All right, thank you, Julie. Yes, we have a handful of questions that have come through here, so I'll bring those up. And again, this was a pretty high-level overview with this, example we showed today. We would be more than happy to speak to you individually and do, a presentation for you or other people in your organization, and speak specifically to your needs. Because we understand that, maybe the Ceridian template's quite different than what you would be doing, and so we'd be happy to discuss your situation and provide some suggestions or advice. Okay, so a couple questions here. Let me bring these up. Okay, so one of them looks like this came in kind of early, so maybe it's been addressed, but it was asking about how the document is a questionnaire, and they were trying to get a little clarification. So I think it was the understanding the connection between the interview and then the actual template and then the output document. So maybe just explain that.
Okay.
Kind of how they all fit together a little bit better.
Okay, so great question. First, thank you for asking it. So when you are working with HotDocs, there are a couple of different programs that you're working with depending on what you have. HotDocs, you have a Word document, and we work inside of Word. So the one great thing about HotDocs is we're not asking you to learn any special coding in the regards of XML or HTML or anything like that. You already know some of what you need to do because you know how to format in Word. So the formatting's done by Word. You're basically learning how to take our fields and put them in your Word document, and then our program reads those fields and builds the questionnaire from it. You can create custom questionnaires if you want, but it reads those fields. And whether you have a web-based version of HotDocs or whether you have a desktop version of HotDocs, both programs will read through the questions you create and ask them to your user. We do have some companies, enterprise level companies especially, who when they're linking HotDocs to other programs, whether it's something like a Salesforce, whether it's an Oracle database, whether it's SQL databases, or like I was saying, case management systems, they might not present the interview to the user, the questionnaire to the user. That data may just flow into the HotDocs template per se, and then it's pushed in, the template is pushed in maybe a document management system, and or there's some other workflow that's built in. It just depends on your needs. It's highly customizable that way. And so I hope that answers some of your questions. I definitely would love to do a demonstration for you of some of that if you're interested in more details.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next one. Could you go into a little bit more detail about integrations with web applications?
Okay. So with the web applications, I unfortunately am not sure which ones you're asking, but we do interface with a lot of different applications. I'm going to escape here for a minute and go back because of the hiccup I had with that slide, and show this one as we go through this conversation. So one of the companies you don't see here is something like a NetDocs, which is a web application that we integrate with, and we have a very open API. We can integrate with things via REST, and so through that, with most of the web applications that you have out there, we can link to them, or you can link to them through that particular API. And it is, like I said, they can be highly customized based off what you're trying to do. And where we have seen something, I'm going to give an example of where we have a highly stylized workflow in a company that I work with. They have a sales department. Again, they do have in-house legal as a part of this. So this is where I'm going to go with this example. So their sales department starts the contracts, and they are locked down because of what the contracts are. Sales can't actually generate most of the contracts as Word files. They have data that pulls in from a database, and they're using a web application of HotDocs. So they come in from a database. There's an integration that's built there, and then it passes the data into our web-based application of HotDocs, and that data passes through. They do see the interview, which is the set of questionnaires so that they can answer some of the data. Then it passes through to their document management system, and they also have DocuSign. So we've integrated with DocuSign in their document management system. In addition to this, there are some controls in their documents and their system. So for example, if a sales rep tries to go to a specific discount below a certain percentage, then in-house legal is notified, and that document can't be created, and in-house legal then has to go in and take a look at that contract and verify that it's okay to produce it, or they can deny it and send it back to the sales rep, basically the sales department. And so this is an opportunity with HotDocs that they didn't have before, where basically in-house legal is interfacing with sales in a very different way, in a more efficient way, and they don't have the same kind of problems with contracts being created that now are difficult for them to fulfill, and without in-house legal knowing. And so there were a couple applications in there that via our web-based version of our product, they were web-based applications that they had in-house that we were working with. Again, with that particular question, I'd really like to know what applications you have so that we can talk about how we could link with those. It's going to be one of those types of answers that I'm going to need to know about your applications a little bit more, but we're going to be able to work with them.
Okay, next question. This is kind of a long question, so I'll read through it here. In our company's legal preparation, we prepare hundreds of different legal documents. So of course we need to pull in certain legal documents in one situation, but in others those documents aren't needed. So how can HotDocs layer and pull in multiple Word templates after the user fills in the interview, but without the content author having to have every single possible document included in the original template they link the interview to?
Okay. Thank you. I love this question. We get this question a lot, actually, and it's probably for a lot of individuals on the line. They're saying, "Oh, yes, I have that too." So one of the things that we have the ability to do in HotDocs with we have we have very powerful conditioning in the system. So if this happens, then pull in this document. And basically through that, we're able to decide what needs to be included in the document, whether it's a paragraph, whether it's entire contracts that need to be included, or whether it's maybe just a single page. And the what that's based off is your particular business rules, because what you're talking about is your business process. And so it's a lot about building that process into the program. And we are able to create something called a document package in the program, and it can be produced multiple ways. You could have the document package basically present you with all those Word files separately as individual Word files. So what you saw come out of the system I showed you for Ceridian is just one document, but it could produce 5 Word documents separately that you could then profile into a document management system, or it could produce 1 Word file all with page breaks between them. And we tend to do this a lot for enterprise clients, especially banks that we're working with, where, you know, think of something like a loan package. You're not just creating one deed of trust, you're creating multiple documents, guarantees, and other things to go with that. And whether you're producing, let's say, a guarantee has a lot to do with how many guarantors you have. You need one for every guarantor and things of that nature. And you know, there's other documents to go with that. So absolutely, HotDocs can handle that. And it's one of those things that I'll go back to that I talked about in the, touched on it slightly in the presentation. It has a lot to do with what we do is not give you something out of the box. We HotDocs is customized for you, and that is one of the most powerful things that we can do for you as a company, is make it yours. Is the program is truly owned and authored. It is yours. And so again, I'd love to talk to you more about your process and how that can really look in HotDocs. Give you some examples. We have a document package I can demo for you.
Okay, great. Another question here. Would it be practical to use HotDocs for internal company forms?
Oh, absolutely. I know we've been talking a lot about contracts that are produced externally that you would hand out outside your company, but we do have some companies that all they do is use it for internal internal staff. In fact, we are one of those companies, and so we do use HotDocs internally. We use it in our own HR department, in our own project management. We use it, and pretty much any place you have a form, you could be using HotDocs. And I know I showed you a Word document, but you can take PDF documents and turn them into HotDocs templates. And a lot of people, they ask me, now why would I want to do that, Julie? Because it might be a fillable PDF already. The key is you can't take a fillable PDF and tie it to a database. You can't take a fillable PDF and reuse those answers. And this is something you didn't really see with the Ceridian document. One of the powerful things behind document automation, good document automation, is that you can take answers that you filled into, let's say, one contract or one internal document and reuse them somewhere else. So let's think about internal documents. It's, let's say, HR documents, or even something within another department that you have, you know, the internal documents per se you're thinking of. If you fill out one document, you want to save your time. You want to save, you know, those errors of not duplicating whatever data you're entering in those data points. And we have a way, even if you're not linking to a database, to save those answers and reuse them in another document. And so you didn't get to see that on the demonstration with the Ceridian doc, but any good document automation should allow you to do that, and that's where you're going to save a lot of time and money. but definitely internal documents. If you purchase HotDocs externally to use them for external contracts, you should also be looking, how can I use this for internal documents? Leverage it that way.
Okay, great. Okay. So some of the questions are fairly specific. So some of these questions are a little more technical and fairly specific, so we'll address those individually after the webinar. So we'll reach out to you if we don't address your specific question during this Q&A session, because some of them may not be as relevant for other people. Okay, so one question here is, okay, so for more advanced authors, do you have training resources available?
Yes. So if you have, and just for those people who on the line don't know the term author, that's also synonymous with the content expert or the individual who's going to be creating the boilerplate templates. And there's, this kind of goes hand in hand with the question of where should I start if I'm using HotDocs, and really training is the first place to start. And we have a couple of things. If you haven't already tried, which with someone who's maybe a more advanced individual, you've probably done this. You've tried HotDocs Academy, which is a series of videos. You'll hear my voice there. You'll hear Chad Thewison. You'll hear Michael Ellis and Bree. We're all individuals who do consulting for the HotDocs Global Services Department. You'll see everything on there from how to get started to how to create a document package in a series of videos. Now, beyond that, really you may be looking at something to a custom training, having one of us come out and create a training specific to your needs. It may not be a site. We can do it over the web. And why I'm saying custom specific to your needs, because there is a point at which you may just need to know, how do I do this one specific feature? And the other thing about that is you may look at maybe instead of training a support type model where I really don't need someone to step-by-step lead me through something. And this is where sometimes, think about any program you work with. You might just need that, pick up the phone, I need to get some help. And you get to a point and you say, hey, how do I just do this one thing? It's going to take me maybe a half hour to jump on the phone with someone. And that's HotDocs Global Services, one of us is there to do that. And for someone who is an advanced author in our program, that's what you're looking at, is either something like that or some more specific training to your needs.
Okay, thank you. So there are just a couple of questions, but we'll address those because we've run out of time. But so if your questions weren't answered during the course of this Q&A session, we'll reach out to you directly, as some of these questions are a little more specific to your situation. So we'll contact you and give you information. So Julie, any last comments before we close this out?
Not at this point. I just wanted to say again, thank you everyone for being on the line. I know you are busy. I know everyone's busy. And I really appreciate you taking this time, and I hope you found what we talked about on the Q&A helpful. I hope you found what I presented helpful. I hope you got a kick out of me messing up during the demonstration. So I hope there was a little bit of entertainment factor there as well. And I just want you to know we appreciate you guys, and I look forward to hopefully speaking with some of you who are new again, and for those of you who are our clients, I want you to know how valued you are and that we appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Julie. So to close this out, I just wanted to mention we did record this webinar. We'll make this available on our website within the next few days. So if you'd like to come back and review anything, or if there are other people in your organization who unfortunately couldn't attend today, you can always share it with them. And we'll send out an email with the details as soon as we get this posted on our website. So thank you again for taking time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks.